Ugh. You know, I hate to start a deep dive like this, but man, are you kidding me with these injuries?
That's like a curse, I swear.
I know, right? So, for anyone just tuning in, we're diving into the latest Tottenham news, and, well, it's not pretty.
Not pretty at all.
We're talking about a club, by the way, that's currently sitting 7th in both the Premier League and Champions League.
Yeah, not ideal.
Not ideal, exactly. Which, I mean, it could be worse, right? But considering the talent we have on this squad, it feels like a major underachievement.
It's like we're cursed, I'm telling you.
Okay. Maybe not cursed, but injuries are definitely a huge part of the problem. We got, what, 7 key players out right now?
It's ridiculous. I mean, how is this even possible?
Right, and just when you think it can't get any worse, bam, we get hit with this Richarlison news.
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
Okay, I won't. But seriously, Richarlison, again, I mean, the guy just can't seem to catch a break.
Hamstring injury this time, just when it seemed like he was starting to find some form.
And according to the Lane and back, it's not a minor thing either.
Yeah.
They're calling it significant, which honestly has me a little worried.
Worried? I'm straight up panicking.
Yeah, I get it. Even Postecoglou didn't sound too optimistic in that YouTube interview, called it a blow, and said Richarlison was disappointed. Understatement of the century, I'd say.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
So let's rewind for a second here. We all remember the hype when we signed Richarlison, right? £60 million, massive expectations. He was supposed to be the missing piece of the puzzle.
The game changer.
The game changer, yeah. But has he lived up to that hype? I mean, his stats aren't terrible. He's got 16 goals, 9 assists, and 73 appearances.
Which isn't bad, but...
But it's not exactly setting the world on fire either, especially for that price tag.
You're telling me we're talking about a potential world-class talent, and he's been, well, inconsistent at best.
Okay, but he did have that incredible assist to Solanke in the Aston Villa win a couple weeks back. Remember that?
Oh yeah, the 4-1 drubbing. That was a thing of beauty.
It was. And on that day, Richarlison looked like the player we all thought we were getting.
He was on fire, no doubt. A real menace in the attack.
But then, bam, hamstring injury against Galatasaray.
The football gods are cruel, my friend. Cruel.
I'm starting to think they might be right, you know?
And here's the thing, right? This injury, it just raises so many questions about Richarlison's future at Tottenham.
Okay, so lay it on me. What kind of questions are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, can he stay healthy? Is his body up to the demands of the Premier League?
Especially in Postecoglou's system, which, let's be honest, is pretty demanding.
Exactly. It's high-intensity, all-action football. You need to be at peak fitness to thrive in that system. And then there's the question of, is Richarlison the right fit tactically?
That's a good point. I mean, even when healthy, he's been kind of hit or miss in this system.
And he's almost 28, not old by any means, but not a young prospect either. So there's a real sense that we're at a crossroads here, both for Richarlison and for Tottenham.
A crossroads. That's a good way to put it.
And where we go from here, well, that's a topic for another deep dive, perhaps. But it's definitely something we need to keep our eye on.
Agreed. Okay. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and really dig into this whole squad depth issue. Because, I mean, that's a big part of this story too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Richarlison's situation, as frustrating as it is, it really highlights a much bigger problem for Tottenham. We're just not deep enough.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What exactly do we mean when we talk about squad depth, and why is it so important? Especially in a league as grueling as the Premier League.
Well, to put it simply, squad depth means having quality players in every position, not just in your starting 11.
So basically you're saying it's about having reliable backups, guys who can step in and get the job done when needed.
Exactly. It's about having options, being able to rotate players without a significant drop in performance, and crucially, being able to cope with injuries.
And that's where we're falling short, right? I mean, we become so reliant on a handful of key players, and when they go down, the whole system kind of collapses.
I feel like a house of cards, honestly. One strong wind and it all comes tumbling down.
Okay, but to be fair, some of the players have actually stepped up when called upon this season, right?
Yeah, I'll give you that. There have been some pleasant surprises, some young lads who have shown real potential, but you can still see the difference in quality when we're forced to make those substitutions.
And that just puts even more pressure on those key players who are fit, right?
Absolutely. They have to carry the weight of the team on their shoulders week in, week out, which of course leads to more fatigue, more wear and tear, and you guessed it, more injuries.
It's a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle indeed, and one that Tottenham need to break free from if they want to achieve any real success.
Okay, so before we get too lost in the squad depth maze, let's circle back to Postecoglou's system for a second, because I think that plays a big role in this whole discussion too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can have the best players in the world, but if they don't fit the manager's tactics, it's not going to work.
Right, like imagine trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Postecoglou's system is very specific, very demanding.
So for those of us who aren't tactical geniuses, break it down for us. What's so special about Postecoglou's system?
Well, he wants that high-pressing, high-intensity style with lots of interchanging positions and attacking fluidity.
It's fun to watch when it clicks, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's all action football, very entertaining. But it requires a certain type of player, a certain level of fitness, and tactical understanding.
Which brings us back to Richarlison, right? On paper, he seems like he'd be a good fit for this system. He's versatile, he can play across the front line, he's got that hunger, that bit of bite to him.
You see the logic, right? But we've also seen that he can be a bit inconsistent, and maybe his style isn't quite as suited to this system as we initially thought.
Interesting. So what are we missing here? What's the key ingredient that Richarlison maybe doesn't have?
Well, let's talk about the inverted fullbacks in Postecoglou's system, because they're really crucial to how it all works.
Hold on, inverted fullbacks. You're gonna have to explain that one for us mere mortals.
Okay, so traditionally, fullbacks hug the sidelines, right? They provide width in attack. But in Postecoglou's system, they tuck inside, almost acting like midfielders.
Okay, so they're kind of like hybrid players, defenders who can also dictate the play.
Precisely. And this allows the wingers to stay wide and stretch the opposition defense. It's a very dynamic, fluid approach.
So how does this all tie back to Richarlison?
Well, because those runs that the forwards have to make in this system are absolutely crucial. They have to be explosive, timed perfectly, and they have to be consistent. And that's been an area where Richarlison has struggled.
He's got the talent, we've seen flashes of brilliance, but
maybe he doesn't quite have the engine or the tactical discipline to consistently execute those runs at the level Postecoglou demands. It's a question mark for sure.
So are we saying he might not be the ideal fit for this particular system?
It's a valid question. I mean, it's still early days, and maybe he can adapt, but it does highlight the importance of not just buying big names, but buying players who fit the system, who complement each other, and who can handle the physical demands.
And that brings us right back to that squad depth issue. It's great having a brilliant tactical system, but if you don't have the players to execute it consistently, you're going to run into problems.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Look at the top teams in the Premier League. Look at Manchester City. They've got quality all over the pitch. They can rotate players, rest key players, and still field a competitive team.
And that's what we're lacking.
Exactly. We're just not there yet in terms of squad depth.
Okay, so we've identified the problem. What's the solution? What do Tottenham need to do to address this lack of depth and make sure we're not one injury away from a meltdown?
Well, it starts with smarter recruitment. We need to stop chasing those shiny names and focus on acquiring players who fit the system, who have a good injury record, and who bring something different to the squad.
No more square pegs and round holes, right?
Exactly. We need players who can slot in seamlessly, who understand their roles, and who can contribute even if they're not starting every week.
And it's not just about buying established players either.
You got it. We've got a fantastic academy at Tottenham, and we need to be giving those young players a chance to prove themselves.
Why spend millions on a backup striker when you might have the next Harry Kane right there in your academy?
That's the spirit. It's about developing talent, creating a pathway for those young players, and building a squad that's sustainable for the long term.
Okay, so smarter recruitment, more emphasis on developing young players. What else?
I think we also need to be more proactive in managing player workloads. Meaning we need to be more strategic about rotating the squad, resting key players when we can, and making sure we're not running them into the ground.
It's a long season with multiple competitions. We need to make sure we're not burnt out by February.
Exactly, and we need to make sure our players are peaking at the right time. And let's not forget the importance of the coaching staff in all of this.
They play a huge role, don't they?
A massive role. They need to be able to adapt their tactics depending on who's available. They need to be able to develop those young players, and they need to be able to create a winning mentality within the squad.
It's a team effort from top to bottom.
Exactly. It's like a giant puzzle, right? You need all the pieces to fit together perfectly if you want to create a masterpiece.
And right now, Tottenham's puzzle is missing a few crucial pieces.
True, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are reasons to be optimistic.
Oh yeah. Give me some of that optimism, I need it.
Well, for starters, we've got a manager who's a proven winner, right? Postecoglou has a track record of success wherever he's gone. He's brought in some exciting new players, and he's instilled a new sense of belief and attacking intent in the squad.
Yeah, you can see it on the pitch. The energy is different.
And let's not forget that demolition of Aston Villa, 4-1, that was a statement performance. We showed what we're capable of when everything clicks.
We're ruthless.
Exactly. We're not a million miles away. With a few tweaks, a bit more consistency, and maybe a couple of shrewd signings in January, we can be a real force to be reckoned with.
So there's hope for Tottenham.
Always! You can never count Tottenham out. We're a club that's known for our fighting spirit, our never say die attitude. We'll be back, stronger than ever.
Now that's the spirit. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the problems, the potential solutions, but let's end this section of the deep dive on a positive note. What are some things that Tottenham fans can be genuinely excited about right now?
Well, for one, we've got a group of young players who are really starting to make a name for themselves.
Like Pape Sarr. He's been a revelation in midfield.
Exactly. He's stepped up in a big way. And there are others, too, just waiting for their opportunity. So even though the short term might be a bit bumpy with these injuries, the long-term outlook is actually quite exciting.
We've got a bright future then.
I think so. And let's not forget the magic of Champions League nights at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Is there a better atmosphere in world football?
Goosebumps every time.
Those European nights are truly special. The noise, the passion, the drama, that's what football is all about.
And even though we're sitting 7th in the Premier League right now, we're not that far off the top 4, are we?
A couple of good results and we're right back in the mix.
So it's not time to panic just yet.
Not at all. There are still plenty of twists and turns to come this season. And who knows, maybe this Richarlison injury will turn out to be a blessing in disguise.
A blessing in disguise. How do you figure?
Well, maybe it forces us to take a long, hard look at our squad depth. Maybe it makes us more creative in our tactics. And maybe it gives some of those young players a chance to really shine.
Interesting perspective. Turn a negative into a positive. I like it. Okay, so before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, let's turn our attention to you, the listener. What are your thoughts on all of this? We've covered a lot of ground here. Richarlison's injury, Postecoglou's system, that never-ending squad depth issue. We want to hear from you, the fans. What are you thinking after all this talk about Richarlison, Postecoglou's system, and our, well, let's just say it, our lack of depth?
Yeah, what are your takeaways? Do you think this whole Richarlison situation will force Tottenham to finally make some tough decisions? It's getting harder to ignore these recurring issues.
Right, like what happens to Richarlison now? Is this the beginning of the end for him at Tottenham?
I mean, the guy's a fighter. He's shown that time and time again. But at what point do you have to say, maybe it's just not working out. Maybe it's time for a change of scenery?
It's hard to say, especially after spending that much money on him. 60 million, gone if we decide to move on.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes you have to cut your losses, even if it hurts. And maybe, just maybe, a fresh start would be the best thing for everyone involved, you know? For Richarlison and for Tottenham.
It's a business after all, right? But yeah, this whole situation with Richarlison, it really does expose some weaknesses in Tottenham's overall strategy. Don't you think?
It's like, remember that old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link?
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Well, right now, Tottenham's chain feels a little, let's just say, fragile.
Okay, so how do we strengthen the chain? Where do we go from here?
I mean, I think we've hit on some key points already. Smarter recruitment, that's a big one.
Definitely. No more panic buys.
And focusing on developing young talent, not just relying on big money signings. We need to build from within, too.
We've got some real potential in the academy. Players just waiting for their shot.
Exactly. And maybe a little more focus on injury prevention, on managing workloads, on making sure our players are peaking at the right times.
Yeah, we need to stop playing catch up with these injuries. Be more proactive.
And honestly, a little bit of luck wouldn't hurt either, because let's face it, sometimes you need things to go your way.
That's true for any team. But luck aside, I think the biggest lesson here is that Tottenham need to be smarter, more strategic, and definitely more forward-thinking. We can't just keep reacting to situations.
I completely agree. We need to control our own destiny, be the ones dictating the narrative. And for that, we need a strong foundation, a team built to last.
A team greater than the sum of its parts. That's what we need.
Exactly. A team that's resilient, adaptable, and ready to compete at the highest level.
A team that can, stay healthy for more than 5 minutes. But hey, I'm an optimist. I still believe we can get there.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's Tottenham. We've seen this club overcome adversity before. We've got the history, the passion, the fans. We'll be back, stronger than ever. I have no doubt about that.
That's what I like to hear. All right, so to all you Spurs fans out there listening, don't lose hope.
Yeah, this Richarlison situation is a setback. It's frustrating. But it's also an opportunity, right?
It's a chance to learn from our mistakes, to make some changes, to build something special.
And that's what makes being a Tottenham fan so exciting, isn't it? The highs, the lows, the drama, and we're in it together, through thick and thin.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And as always, COYS. Come on, you Spurs. All right, that's a wrap for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more analysis, more insights, and hopefully some more positive news on the injury front. Until then, stay strong, Spurs fans, and keep the faith. We'll see you soon.